dissing, I'm a who that.
I'm a who that.
Long as I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. Sports coma, yeah, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who that.
I'm a who that.
Sports coma, this is where we do that.
Where we do that.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Somebody please better help. Running this thing like Elf. Thank God every day I'm not a felt. Go to YouTube Live with Big Q and the guys. If you ain't ride or die, the bandwagon get flipped. Been marching in, that was way for the ring. I was yelling out your shame for the championship. Bucking on town, duck down. Falcons, pluck, get shut down. Panthers ain't much touchdown. The vision really belong to us now. So much hate on the Saints, you could probably tell. Ever since Bounty Gate hit the NFL, when things seem fishy, then you probably smell the crooked referees are Roger Goodell. Yeah, running like this, and I'm a who that. Every day I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. It's the sports coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like this, and I'm a who that. It's the sports coma, this is where we do that.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys on the PRO Media Network.
Welcome. You're now rocking with the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. We have intense, entertaining, educating, and enlightening sport talk from your favorite sports fan. Much love to the Who Dat Nation. And like I've been saying for a long time, we up in this thing. Shout out to the fam. Appreciate y'all for being in this stream. This one, it's called Hopkins or Renfrow, which is the best fit for the black and gold. So first and foremost, happy Memorial Day to you guys. Hope you had a fantastic and family-centered Memorial Day. Hope you had a fantastic weekend, 3-day weekend, as we get ready to start the Shark Week, which is pretty positive as well. So shout out to you guys and appreciate you for the support as we move forward. So please feel free, fam, to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and by all means, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section in the chat. Let me know how you feel about which would represent the best fit for the Saints. And we thinking from a economic standpoint as well as a schematic standpoint. Now, from a schematic standpoint, they both would work, but you have to factor in so many things. So we're gonna go over that in this edition of the Coma. This won't be an extremely long episode. This would be a rather short episode of the Coma. So feel free, family, to do me a service. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and by all means, feel free to share the link in your social media feed. I've always said that because it helps us out a great deal. So anyway, let's jump right into it. And this is the article that partly inspired it, or the tweet from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, who says the question of DeAndre Hopkins' best fits. And of course, he mentions the Saints in here. And this was inspiring a lot of people to talk about DeAndre Hopkins and potentially a Saint matchup. So, I mean, there are several different free agents that we can actually look at and think about in terms of that's still available right now. They can actually come in and help the Saints. So we'll have an opportunity to kind of look at that between these two guys, and we'll pick apart some other topics for the Saints at another day with the OTA's second phase of them coming up this weekend. Gonna be doing a lot of content on that. So anyway, let's get into it, man. As we start off, shout out to The Wire with this article here. As ESPN suggests Saints as an ideal landing spot for ex-Cardinal pro DeAndre Hopkins. So let's get into the article right here by Mr. Sigler. And he talks about, could the Saints enter the sweepstakes for Mr. Hopkins? And the wide receiver reached 5 Pro Bowls, won 3 All-Pro nominations with the Cards and the Texans. But the Cardinals signaled their intent to tank the 23 season by cutting him days before the important NFL deadline on June the 1st. The insider Adam Schefter had, he dropped the interesting scoop. He said that this team, the Texans, been trying to trade DeAndre Hopkins for a while, for months. They've been trying to move him, and they didn't get anywhere because he refused to kind of adjust his salary for the incoming team. There were several suitors that were interested, but they didn't want to take Hopkins based on his current contract at the time. So anyway, let's look at what he said in the article. So how do the Saints fit what Mr. Fowler suggested, that the exact match, while breaking down several of the best fits for Hopkins now that he's a free agent? Fowler said the Saints have they haven't won anything, but have enough room in the receiving core for Hopkins and enough salary cap resources to make their case. And this is what he was saying. Chris Olave is a primary receiver, but the Saints could use a running mate in light of Michael Thomas's durability concerns. The Saints don't really do the tear down rebuild thing, and with a weak NFC South, New Orleans could see an opportunity to pounce. The Saints have a healthy cap outlook at 3.6 mil, not the opposite would have stopped him. And Derek Carr is good enough to potentially entice Hopkins, who can continue to play in a dome and a warm weather climate. Number one, the NFC South, in my opinion, is not weak. All of these teams spending a lot of money to be very competitive in the NFC South. Outside of the Texans, the Titans, the Bucks. I got the Titans, the Bucks, and the Texans all on the same damn level, man. I mean, it just is what it is, right? We know the Buccaneers are not looking to kind of improve right now. And we know they're looking at Williams out of USC next year. We know what time it is, man. Why else would you pass up on Hendon Hooker and making some moves and settling with Baker Mayfield? So, come on, we know what time it is. So anyway, the compelling argument, the Saints' level of interest remains uncertain. The only teams reportedly in on Hopkins when the Cardinals were seeking a trade with him was the Chiefs and the Bills, both of whom were ranked high by Fowler's probable landing spots that Hopkins has his choice of destination. Now, if the Saints are willing to outspend him, you think they would have entered the trade talks. Very good point. Creative salary cap accountant could fit Hopkins on the Saints' books while still paying him the hefty contract he's seeking. For example, Derek Carr's deal only counts $7.2 million against the cap in 2023, despite carrying a total value of $150. Remember those escalating contract totals, and usually in the first year and even in the second year of these agreements, they're pretty manageable. And then the back of the deal is backloaded. And then when we get to the back of the deal, the Saints kick it into the future with several years of phantom year contracts or years on a deal to kind of span out that money. So it's not really that issue. So what he's saying is they could make it work from a contractual standpoint like the Saints usually do. But if the Saints are looking for a new addition at wide receiver, is likelier through a trade for another team becomes more financially viable after June 1st. There's a lot of smoke linking the Saints with Hunter Renfrow, who's a slot man who would bring instant chemistry with Carr. Hopkins would represent a bigger swing at the plate, but someone like Renfrow might better match what the Saints are willing to invest at the position. Now, this is a very good point on the Hopkins thing, and a lot of people like D-Hop. He's a fantastic wide receiver. The Saints could make it work with Hopkins, but what does a contract look like from DeAndre Hopkins? So let's span here and look at one of our favorite resources, Sport Track, and this is what they had to say about a average annual salary of the calculated market value for one DeAndre Hopkins at 30 plus years of age in 9-year pro. They're looking at 23 mil for him as an average salary. Market value of 3-year at over $69 million, which will put him in the 23 million plus annual salary. And that puts him up there in the top 5 in terms of annual salary. Currently speaking, it'll put him, as you can see, on this list with Adams, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs. It'll place him right above Brandon Cooks with 23 on this list. So is that the kind of money the Saints are willing to spend? We talk about it. And remember, the Saints have about $14 million right now currently in cap, according to Sport Track, that they have. And I'll show you that after I finish breaking this down. But yes, this is what they can do. And realistically, the Saints can pull off both options for DeAndre Hopkins, but that really depends. Like, if that was the case, what we doing with Michael Thomas? What are we going to do with Mike if that's the case? So this kind of looking at Hopkins over Michael Thomas, that kind of contradicts their value to Michael after he restructured his deal, because that's basically what they do. If you bring DeAndre Hopkins in here and the top receiver is going to be Hopkins and Chris Olave, and Michael Thomas is going to be kicked down to a slot guy. So, so is that what we're doing here? That would be the move right there. So that would kind of make the Saints hypocrites to a degree, because they decided to move on with Hopkins versus Michael Thomas, besides before even giving him an opportunity to show that he's healthy for this upcoming season. So a lot of people gonna say, Q, whatever, we still got to get this popping and shaking. If you get an opportunity to land a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, you land him. Only thing is, you'll have considerable competition from other people for DeAndre Hopkins services. So anyway, let's keep it moving, and we'll go to the next article right here. And we talk about Hunter Renfrow, the former, well, he's still a Raider right now, but a lot of trade talk and speculation is around Hunter Renfrow. And why would it not be tied to the New Orleans Saints, where he had a very good year last year, and he's very familiar with our $150 million quarterback, Mr. Derek Carr. The Saints have already given Derek Carr several familiar wide receivers and, receivers. You got a tight end and Foster Moreau. You have the wide receiver, Mr. Brian Edwards. So why would Hunter Renfrow not make sense for the Saints? He'll be the perfect slot guy there. Of course, it does. If you bring Hunter Renfrow in here, it does what does happen to Rashid Shaheed. It just thickens your wide receiver core, right? He doesn't start over Michael Thomas. He will definitely affect Rashid Shaheed. It'll make your wide receiver core that much competitive with Hunter Renfrow in there, which would be a very interesting commodity to have a guy like that. And of course, the question I would ask to the Who Dat Nation is, when is the last time, if you can acquire a Hunter Renfrow and bring him into your offensive fold, and particularly into the wide receiver room, he would be instantly probably one of the best wide receivers at the slot position that we've had in some time, right? And we've had some really good slot people here over time. The great, one of the greatest slot weapons we ever had here is the great Lance Moore. You had other similar guys that played the slot really well. We can call on like Jerome Paython and all these other guys, but Lance Moore kind of shines out in that position more so than anybody in past St. Louis. But Hunter Renfrow, he gets there, man. He can potentially, fit right up under Lance Moore in that capacity, because he does a really good job operating in the slot. He blocks. He has a gift for finding the holes and finding little holes in the zone and sitting on them and knowing how to catch the ball. He takes hits. He's elusive. He's not a super fast wide receiver, but he catches everything that you throw to him. Real tough wide receiver. So anyway, let's dig into the article. Shout out to Canal Street Chronicles for dropping the scoop right here. Things could be tricky in terms of compensation, but Renfrow fit is almost perfect. He does fit the Saints wide receiver room very well. So multiple reports have come out over the past couple of weeks that the Saints have interest in the Raiders' Hunter Renfrow. It has been reported that the Saints have maintained this level of interest since the start of the combine back in March. The Raiders, knowing that they will have to save money in a trade involving Renfrow after the June 1st. So that's the day we have to really watch out for, is that June 1st, which is close. And it's likely the reason we're seeing these reports as we enter closer to that date. Now, with that being said, I like to detail what the compensation might be involving a trade for the receiver and how he would fit in the Saints offense. So what would a trade package, according to Canal Street Chronicles, look like? Well, the Raiders send Hunter Renfrow to the Saints. Saints send a 2024 and 2025 fifth-round picks. So 2 fifth-round picks is what they're believing that it'll take to get Hunter Renfrow. I don't know about that. The compensation part is a little tricky, being the Saints are without a 3rd and 4th round pick in next year's draft. Renfrow's value is likely around a 4th round pick due to his positional value as a slot and an injury-plagued year. It also gets tricky when it comes to the money aspect. Trading Hunter Renfrow after June 1st saves the Raiders almost $12 million. The Saints have the room to add Renfrow right now, but would likely require some maneuvering of the cap. The Saints would likely ask the Raiders to take on a portion of Renfrow's salary in exchange for a higher draft compensation. But they also don't possess one of that, that would make them, that they don't possess one that would make sense. The 2 fifth-round picks are probably the most reasonable compensation factoring and everything. The Saints are also cute with letting those picks go, as they are expected to be in a decent amount of compensatory picks for key players that walked in free agency last year. I think that the trade like this would make sense for both parties. So the fit. Saints fan media believe that signing of Foster Moreau was the final piece to the Saints offense in terms of versatility the team would have. And the reporter says, I don't fully disagree. I believe that adding Renfrow to this group will fully solidify this offense, will likely truly have a specialist of every position. If you take a look at the depth chart right now, the Saints do not possess a true slot receiver in their offense. Yes, we see guys move around and play the slot here or there, but a guy who is tailored for the spot. Renfrow brings exactly that. He's a high-value target who's very crafty, can work the short and immediate routes. Yes, he can better than most. His ability to take advantage of mismatches, incredible short area quickness, and deceptive route running is something the Saints could use out of the slot. Absolutely. Rashid Shaheed has the ability to do some of that, but we see Renfrow catch over 100 passes and go for 1,000 yards just 2 seasons ago. So we know he can do it. So adding Renfrow alongside your big possession receiver like Mike Thomas, your smooth big play guy, Chris Olave, gives the Saints offense the perfect combination at the receiver position. It also just makes a ton of sense with the familiarity between Renfrow and Carr, and that connection was very evident in the past. I think this would be the perfect move for the Saints. So shout out to the Canal Street Chronicle crew for dropping the scoop on us. But, you know, do you guys agree with this, with the writer on this, that you can get him for the 5th round compensation, get him for two 5th round picks? So we'll see how that all works out and goes. But at the end of the day, man, in terms of the familiarity, knowing him, it will be most interesting to see how exactly that will work. Now, if you take a look at Hunter Renfrow's contract, as we always like to do here in the Sports Coma, because we always pay attention to the economics of the situation currently. As you can see, he does have one more year, a 2024 year, and then he has several non-playable years on his current deal, which, you know, he has left is a 2-year, $32 million deal, according to Sport Track. And right now we're in this base salary of $6.5 million, the signing 1.8, and the roster of 4.3. As you can see, now you look at this contract for 2023, not a bad contract according to Sport Track. Not really a bad contract at all to absorb $6.5 million of a wide receiver you're familiar with. But, you know, they do have the potential opt-out. We know that they're looking to trade him June 1st, which is right around the corner, by the way. You know, he has one more deal, a year left on the deal, with the 2024 year at 11.1 mil. So if this is the thing, and if it's between the two, and we know that the Saints are a team that could use another slot man. The writer makes a great point on having a slot specialist. We don't have a slot specialist. We just have versatile wide receivers that can play the position, right? Rashid Shaheed operates right there. He can operate outside too, as well. We talked about that he can do. He's better outside than inside. But Hunter Renfrow is one of these guys, like a Wes Welker type. You know, he's that type of guy, like a Wes Welker. What's the other guy I'm thinking about? He's like these guys. They have an uncanny ability to be able to, you know, block and just be deceptive and crafty enough to move and find holes and sit on, you know, areas of the field with the quarterback and just check it down to him. He's a guy that does do a really excellent job of catching most of the majority of the passes that's thrown to him. The connections between Derek Carr, you can't beat that. And with the Saints offense, if you really want him to get truly comfortable, what is it to give up a 5th round draft pick? And he's right. You'll get compensated back with compensatory picks, you know, for next year. So what is it to give up a few picks? If it's, you talking 5th round picks, if that's indeed what it takes to get a Hunter Renfrow in here, you damn right. I give up 5th round, 2 of them if you need be, to get a starting slot man over the next couple of years that your quarterback is familiar with. You damn right. Now, what does it do? How does the potential trade with Hunter Renfrow impact the Saints wide receiver room? It helps thicken the wide receiver room. It makes it even probably the most dangerous wide receiver room in all of the NFL is what it does. It really does. It makes it a very, very difficult room to deal with. You know, very difficult room to deal with. And then it provides weapons that your quarterback is very familiar with from his time with the Raiders. So it's so many pluses and positives to the Hunter Renfrow option versus the DeAndre Hopkins option that it's just utterly ridiculous if the Saints don't look to see what's going to happen. Now, the writer's right. There was rumblings about Hunter Renfrow. And of course, over time, we had to wait to see when we get up to the June 1st deadline to see exactly how the Raiders want to handle this thing. So we'll see how it all goes. But between the two, and I know a lot of people like DeAndre Hopkins and what he does do. He also improves the wide receiver room as well, but it's like one of those situations which you don't have all the money in the world, so it makes sense for you to, if you're going between the two, which one of the two makes the best sense for your roster. And I would have to lean more to the Hunter Renfrow option, because if you look at his salary according to Sport Track, that's a very livable contract from the Saints' perspective that's sitting on $14 million. They signed all of their draft picks, I think, except for Isaiah Foskey. I think Foskey is the last remaining guy, if I'm not mistaken. Y'all correct me in the chat, but I think Isaiah Foskey is the last dude that had not signed his contract yet. I think they got everybody under contract except for Isaiah Foskey. Y'all correct me in chat if I'm wrong here, but I want to say I don't remember him signing his deal. I don't remember Isaiah Foskey signing that deal. So anyway, they've got the majority of their draft picks under contract. They've gotten the starting wide receiver. Now the Saints getting close to training camp, like the big boy camps. They can feel free to kind of take a shot at one of these veteran defensive ends if they want. Even if they wanted to bring in a linebacker like Quan Alexander, who played for $1.2 million last year, that's very affordable for the Saints to solidify the linebacker core. So, they get a veteran linebacker, like an Alexander. I still say the Saints need to bring in another interior defensive tackle, a nose tackle in particular, a veteran guy that can bring in to help out. And I'm pretty sure they will do these things as we get closer to camp. They will bring in veterans. That's when they usually do it. Right before the real camp comes in, you'll see the Saints sign veterans to add on to the team, and they'll cut a couple of these undrafted guys. They do it every year. Not all these undrafted guys are going to make it to the big camp. Right before camp starts, we always have an injury or two with somebody, and the Saints see something else that they like better, and they decide to chop that guy off and bring this other guy in here. So I still say the Saints need a little bit more girth right there in the interior defensive tackle position, mostly the nose tackle. People still want them to go and see if they can pencil in an end or a veteran end can help push the end position, the defensive end position opposite of Cam, the linebacker position behind Zach Bourne, because they believe in giving Zach Bourne an opportunity. Could be Quan Alexander come in and help push that stuff. I would love to see that, see that come around. But in terms of the the Hunter Renfrow option, I really think between the two, and it's just my thought process on it. I like DeAndre Hopkins, but I like Hunter Renfrow's fit better. It's his relationship with Carr, his familiarity with him, the fact that he did have some injuries and stuff like that. But what it does is you put him in the Saints wide receiver room. It just creates this whole beautiful effect there. I mean, it creates this ultimate competition. They'll have wide receivers all over the place and wide receivers that can do different things. You have wide receivers that can act as possession guys. You got a slot guy there. You got guys that are speed guys. So the Saints will have a multitude of different options. Taysom Hill can operate in as well as a tight end. And I mean, they will have several options around. And like I said, the only thing will stop the Saints in terms of them really being a stellar offense, like a top 5 offense in the NFL, is the imagination of Pete Carmichael and the passing game coordinator, Coach Curry. So that's what it comes down in my book. But anyway, let me hear from you guys. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about that as well, and which would probably be the better option as far as that goes. So anyway, and we're going to take a look at the cap according to Sport Track, as you can see right here. Estimated cap, Sport Track has the Saints over just $14 million. So like I said, I wasn't going to hold y'all that long on this one, but y'all let me know how y'all feel about this contract and about these two options. So let's kind of do a brief recap here as we're talking about D-Hop, which would make the best sense between them. We know they're two really good, fantastic wide receivers. Hopkins is an all-world wide receiver that the Cardinals released, trying to save some money. They couldn't trade him because he wouldn't rework his deal. So he's out there, and there are teams that are trying to put him with the Saints and all this kind of stuff. But if you picked up DeAndre Hopkins, that's kind of waving off Michael Thomas in my book. Hopkins starts next to Chris Olave, and that would be a phenomenal wide receiver core. It would be absolutely phenomenal if the Saints were able to bring DeAndre Hopkins onto the team. But like I said, it won't be cheap. We're talking about a guy that if he signs a deal, maybe a 2 or 3 year deal with you, a 3 year deal with you, and this is what it looking like according to Sport Track's value is 3 years at almost $70 million, an average of $23.2 million a year is what the calculated market value for a top level wide receiver. Even though he's over 30 years old with 9 years worth of experience, he's still a guy that can give you phenomenal numbers. and help your offense be one of the best in the game. So wherever he ends up, he's going to have a major impact in the wide receiver room. But he is a guy that's coming in, will be a big time weapon. And it definitely, if the Saints add him, it will definitely take the offense to another level. But it definitely, signing him does mean that pushes Michael Thomas down, because it'll be him and Chris Olave operating there, and then it'll push Mike down to what, slot? And don't get me wrong, you don't think Mike can work that slot? I think Mike can work that slot. So it would be an intriguing option to see that happen, to have those guys, man. That'll be probably that to me would be probably the best trio of wide receivers in the NFL if Mike can stay healthy. So that's what that'll do. So you have the money issues with the move that can ultimately bring DeAndre Hopkins to the Saints, and the Saints could finagle that. They could definitely do that with $14 million. They can kind of work that money and kind of have that first year way down in dumps, and then it kind of has to have an escalating year type model, how the Saints usually work it. So it'll be some management that they will have, created money management type stuff that Mickey Loomis and Kai Harley would have to work with. But that would definitely set the Saints wide receiver room off. And then, of course, we talk about Hunter Renfrow and his addition between the two. They're both two phenomenal wide receivers. Hopkins on this is a whole nother level. But Hunter Renfrow makes a lot more sense if you look at the money that he's coming in at, $6.5 million. He had almost a $2 million signing bonus with them. So outside of that, and then he has another year left in 2024 at 11.1 mil. So you take him, who has familiarity with a guy like Derek Carr, you put him onto the team. His money is okay. You would have to surrender a couple of 5th round picks according to the article to get him to come here. So you get a slot man, and it'll be a phenomenal look for the team as well. And it really, truly, if you think about it, the second option, Hunter Renfrow, makes a lot more sense than the DeAndre Hopkins model, even though it'll look good on Madden, to be honest with you. But Hunter Renfrow comes in and will fill that slot. It'll thicken that wide receiver room. It'll just be a phenomenal time going on in the Saints offense, man. That'll boost us even higher, man. So that will be phenomenal. So either one of these guys are good options for the Saints, currently sitting at 14.2+ mil in the books. So with that being said, fam, I'm gonna end the stream on that. I'd like to thank you guys for chiming in on this episode of the Coma. Once again, happy Memorial Day to you guys. Appreciate you today. Shout out to our veterans out there and all the great and fantastic veterans that's out there. Shout out to you guys. Appreciate you and your dedication to what you've done and your great sacrifice. I have veterans in my family. My grandfather, rest his soul, he was a veteran, an Army veteran. So shout out to all our veterans out there, all our fantastic people. And shout out to the Who Dat Nation, man, and all of our great Saint Think Tank family members. With that being said, listen, please feel free to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll be back on Tuesday on Patreon, family. If y'all want to join me on Patreon, simply join or become a member of the channel here, or look in the link in the description section below for the Patreon. You can click that link and go there and sign up for Patreon. We do all kind of stuff. We do film study and everything on Patreon and all this kind of beautiful stuff. So support the stream, sign up for our Patreon. It's a big thing that we like to do as we move forward to try to build the platform heading forward. A lot of big things happen moving ahead, fam. So please feel free. Keep supporting, fam. We got protv1.com that's available. Please support our content creators. Also, the whothatdaily.com is our regular headquartered site where we have articles, our own articles. We also have our own posting, all of the stuff across the several different platforms that we operate out of. All of that stuff is headquartered there. You can check it all out, merch and everything in the link tree link in the description section. Anything and everything helps us keep building and doing what we're doing. So with that being said, I'm gonna get out on that. Much love to the fam. Appreciate y'all, and y'all have a very good afternoon. I'll holler at y'all on Tuesday. Peace and who dat.
Yeah. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who dat. I'm a who dat. Long as I'm living, I'm a who dat. Lose or winning, I'm a who dat. Sports Coma, yeah, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who dat. I'm a who dat. Sports Coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Somebody please better help. Running this thing like Elf. I thank God every day I'm not a felt. Go to YouTube Live with Big Q and the guys. If you ain't ride or die, the bandwagon get flipped. Been marching in, that was way for the ring. I was yelling out your shame for the championship. Bucking on town, duck down. Falcons pluck, get shut down. Panthers ain't much touchdown. The vision really belong to us now. So much hate on the Saints, you could probably tell. Ever since Bounty Gate hit the NFL, when things seem fishy, then you probably smell the crooked referees on Roger Goodell. Yeah, fucking like this, and I'm a who that. Every day I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. It's the sports coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like this, and I'm a who that. It's the sports coma, this is where we do that.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys on the PRO Media Network.
WhoThatDaily.com. That's right, WhoThatDaily.com. Your one-stop shop for everything New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, and even the top flight boxing news. So if you're a Who That and you're looking for a place to stay up on your team, WhoThatDaily.com is your site. WhoThatDaily.com for the sport Who That.